Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Ashatya Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare Hare.
Jai Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Shri Prabhupada ki
Jai,
Jai. Om
Jai.
Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamsya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratvashe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna. So Narasimha Prus, you're taking attendance?
Yes, Guruji, I am taking.
And Brahmacharis, who's taking attendance?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, we are myself Syam Jagannathas, we are taking attendance.
Achha, you're taking, okay. Fine. So today Brahmacharis have come?
Yes, Prabhuji, till now 6 of them have come and more are on the way.
Seven. Okay. Okay, can we revise a few points from yesterday's discussions?
Yes, Guruji, you made a point yesterday about the prosperity and the presence of Krishna. Just like the presence of sun, all the necessities of life are present. Similarly, you said Krishna Surya Sama. As soon as Krishna is there, all the auspicious signs are there. But because Yudhishthir Maharaj saw the bad omen, he suspected that Krishna might have been disappeared.
Okay, fine, good. Somebody else?
Prabhuji, you are mentioning a point about how Lord Krishna this very much favors the Go and Brahman. So about the importance of Brahmanical culture, that how this without becoming a Brahmana by qualification is difficult to please Lord Krishna, and how to develop this Brahmanical qualification. Bhagavad Gita verse number 12.13 to 12.20. This you are mentioning, and so importance of Brahmanical.
Okay, fine. Somebody else?
Roji, we are also speaking about how material prosperity automatically follows spiritual prosperity.
Right. Okay, good to hear your voice, Satiprabhu. Right. Thank you. Somebody else?
You are explaining, Prabhuji, about that shloka Yam Shastra with the Utrajya Vartate Kamna. Just telling that how actually when there is a disconnection from the Lord, then one acts whimsically.
Right.
And that's why the whole problems, so many, like how Krishna disappeared then in the Yudhishthira Maharaj kingdom that time. We saw so many bad omens. So So like that, this disconnection you are telling that how the disconnection leads to all that
Right.
chaos, all that chaos.
Okay, thank you. Maybe 2-3 more.
Prabhuji, you were speaking about that Vaikuntha atmosphere, Prabhupada mentioned this event, where each devotee appreciates the service of others, and there is no
Right.
envy.
Yes, no envy and material competition and rivalry. Yes. Okay, good.
Yesterday I explained that how Balram is the protection of the devotees of the. We discussed about Lord Nityananda Prabhu saved many devotees.
Yes, only by the mercy of Lord Balram, Lord Nityananda can one get the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Headless man will not be there. Head is the Brahmin. So Brahman to construct the character.
Yes. Yes, that's quoted from Prabhupada's lecture. Brahmana is meant to construct character. That's right. Okay, fine. So, from the 14th chapter, a few points which we could. Okay, we're on verse number 38. Okay, in verse number 37. In verse number 37. So Yudhishthira Maharaj is speaking about the queens, how the queens, they could enjoy everything just by pleasing Krishna. So just like Satyabhama. So because she was pleasing Krishna, then Krishna, he fought with the Devatas to get the Parijat tree from the heavenly planets. So Prabhupada ends the purport by saying, since the Lord is the proprietor of everything within his creation, it is not very astonishing for the queens of Dwaraka to have any rare thing from any part of the universe. So everything was available for the queens because they were pleasing Krishna, they were serving Krishna, and Krishna is the proprietor of the universe, so he can get anything from any part of the universe. So the same principle applies for the devotees also. If one is simply trying to please Krishna, then Krishna can give everything and anything, whatever is needed for the service of the devotees. And in text 38, he's speaking about how the Yadus, so that previous verse spoke about the queens, and this verse speaks about the Yadus, how the Yadus, they were also able to get all types of opulence because of the presence of Krishna and because Krishna was always protecting them. So they got the Sudharma assembly house, which was actually meant only for the Devatas. So Prabhupada writes in the middle of the first paragraph, such an assembly house is never meant for any state on the globe because the human being on the earth is unable to construct it. However far a particular state may be materially advanced. But during the time of Lord Krishna's presence on the earth, the members of the Yadu family forcibly brought the celestial assembly house to earth and placed at Dwarka. They were able to use such force because they were certain of the indulgence and protection of the Supreme Lord Krishna. In other words, the Lord is provided with the best things in the universe by his pure devotees. Lord Krishna was provided with all kinds of comforts and facilities available in the universe by the members of the Yadu dynasty. And in return, such servitors of the Lord were protected and fearless. Okay, so because the devotees, they want to serve Krishna with the best of things, so then Krishna also reciprocates by awarding that protection and fearlessness. Okay, so that's the reciprocation between the Lord and his devotees. And so, as Srila Prabhupada in one lecture, he says that how Krishna must be given the best. And so in one lecture, Prabhupada is saying, so as far as deity worship is concerned, whatever is offered to Krishna must be first class. So first class dresses, first class bhoga, everything first class. So that was the mode of Srila Prabhupada. And we read about how in the Chaitanya Charitamrita we read the past of Raghav Pandit, how he was offering the best of coconuts, even if it meant paying a higher price and going a long distance. And of course, because of that devotional service of Raghav Pandit, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself glorifies that devotional service of Raghav Pandit as if he had 5 mouths. So Mahaprabhu was so pleased by the offerings of Raghav Pandit because of the quality of devotional service. And that's what Krishna is really interested in. He's interested in the quality of devotional service. Otherwise, as Prabhupada says in so many lectures, Krishna doesn't need our service. It's not that Krishna is hungry. Krishna has so many consorts to serve him in the spiritual world. Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambharam say. So as far as what can we ordinary human beings offer, but what Krishna is really interested is the bhakti element, and the bhakti element manifests in terms of the quality of the service. And when the quality of service is there, then Krishna reciprocates by offering protection and fearlessness to the devotees. And then Prabhupada explains in the next paragraph, the cause of fear is a sort of illusion for the living being. So just like a person in a dream, he sees a tiger, and in illusion he's fearful. So when one wakes up to the reality, then there is no cause of fear. So we know the famous bhayam dvitiya abhiniveshata syat. So it's only because of forgetfulness of Krishna that one experiences fear. So till verse number 38, Yudhishthira Maharaj has been asking about the well-being of the residents of Dwaraka and other associates of Krishna. And from verse number 39 till the end, then Yudhishthira Maharaj asks about Arjuna personally. Why Arjuna is dejected? Is it because of not performing certain duties which he's supposed to perform as a Kshatriya? So he's asking questions specifically for Arjuna. So whether he lost his health, or he has been, or is this due to others disrespecting, neglecting you? So in verse number 40, 41, 42. So all these verses are speaking about 43. Yes, so these verses are speaking about the duties of a Kshatriya. Okay, so when duties are not performed, then a person is not satisfied. So why? Because prescribed duties are mentioned in the Shastra. Shastras are coming from Krishna. And so when one does not perform one's prescribed duties properly, Krishna is not pleased. And then when Krishna is not pleased, then obviously the person, the jiva, is also cannot be happy. And so therefore, all these verses, Yudhishthira Maharaj is asking Arjuna whether he has been performing his prescribed duties properly. Like verse number 40 is speaking about, could you not give in charity to one who asked, or could you not keep your promise to someone? At the end of this purport, to verse 40, Prabhupada says that these discrepancies are sometimes causes of despondency, and thus failing, a person becomes subject to criticism, which might also be the cause of Arjuna's plight. Okay, so when one does not perform one's duties, then that becomes the cause for despondency, and of course criticism also. Then verse number 41 talks about protection of brahmanas, children, cows, women, diseased. So in any case, all these verses are talking about duties. Because all varnashram duties is about Atakumbi Dvijashreshta Varnashrama Vibhagasha Swanushitasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haritoshanam. The purpose of all duties is ultimately to please Krishna. So when duties are not performed properly, that also becomes a cause of despondency. As we know, the famous pastime between Narada and Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva had not sufficiently glorified the Lord, and that became the cause of despondency. Okay, and then finally, Yudhishthira Maharaj says, or is it that you're feeling empty for all time because you might have lost your most intimate friend, Lord Krishna? Oh, my brother Arjuna, I think of no other reason for your becoming so dejected. Okay. Fine. So can we proceed to chapter 15? Or does someone have some very urgent questions to ask from the 14th chapter?
First purport. Prabhupada is writing this statement here, like the stage of a devotee which attracts the transcendental affection of the Lord does not develop unless one has developed the qualities of a Brahmana, as above mentioned, right?
Yes.
So by this, it appears that before becoming a devotee, one has to work for these qualities to be achieved, like one has to cultivate these qualities. And like Prabhupada in this verse only, in the purport he writes, those who are so means basically he's giving stress does not unless one does not develop these qualities of a Brahmana, as above mentioned, so the one cannot attract the devotional attract transcendental affection. At the same time, we hear this verse also, Sarvaya Gunas Tatu Samadhi. How to understand these two things?
Yes. Okay, so this is a question quite often asked. So on one hand, there is emphasis laid on development of qualities, but at the same time, it is said, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavata kinchana sarver gunais tatra samasate surahara abhaktasya kuto mahad guna manorathena sati dhavato bahi. So by the practice of devotional service, one automatically develops all these qualities. So then what's the need for making separate endeavors to try and develop these qualities? So yes, it's true that by practice of devotional service, one develops the qualities. But at the same time, one point is, what is the level of our devotional service by which the qualities could automatically develop? That's one point. Second point is that trying to develop the qualities is itself a part of devotional service. It's not something separate from devotional service. So why are we trying to develop the qualities? Because those qualities will please Krishna. So that means trying to develop the qualities is also a part of devotional service. It's not separate from devotional service. So for example, if we are trying to develop qualities of humility, tolerance, simplicity, so all these qualities are ultimately going to please the Lord. And the purpose of devotional service is to please the Lord. So therefore, the endeavor to try and develop the qualities is also a part of devotional service. It's not separate. If one thinks that, okay, I will simply practice devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, and try to do my services, and as far as these qualities are concerned, let them come whenever they develop. But till that time, if we are not trying to develop the qualities, then till that time, are we going to behave in very crude ways, which will displease the Vaishnavas, which will displease the Lord? So then how can we progress in devotional service? So therefore, the two have to go hand in hand. So yes, we are practicing the various angas of bhakti on one hand, but at the same time, we also need to cultivate whatever is favorable for devotional service. Anukulya sankalpa, pratikulya savachana. So whatever is favorable, that means trying to develop these qualities is something which is favorable for our devotional service. So making an endeavor for that is also an important part of devotional service. So in that context, Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, just a second. Okay, so I'm reading from the purport to the 12th chapter of the Gita, text 19.
It is not separate.
So towards the end of that, purport Prabhupada writes, so this is, as we were discussing yesterday, the section which is talking about the list of qualities which are pleasing to Krishna in the 12th chapter. So here also Prabhupada writes that we may find some repetition in the description of the qualifications of a devotee, but this is just to emphasize that the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna. One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. And then he says, of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. But then a part of devotional service is also trying to develop the qualifications. So he should develop. So that means there's some endeavor needed to develop the qualities. Is it all right?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Yes.
Yes, Guruji. But here also Prabhupada again writes in this purport, of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but
Yes.
Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him.
Yes, that is true. Why? Just like the Nectar of Devotion explains, two examples are given in the Nectar of Devotion in that connection. Just like ahimsa, non-violence. So a devotee doesn't have to do something separately to cultivate the quality of non-violence. Automatically, the devotee becomes non-violent. The example is given there of Mrigari. So Mrigari became a devotee, then he didn't even want to kill ants. The other example is being given that just like vegetarianism. So a devotee doesn't have to do something separately to become vegetarian. Just by practicing devotional service, he automatically becomes vegetarian. But then at the same time, then there has some determination is required to become a vegetarian. I mean, to practice devotional service and follow the principles of devotional service. So then a devotee in the initial stages requires some determination. If he has been eating meat, then if some determination is required to stop eating meat and follow the various principles. So that's a part of devotional service. So similarly, so for example, somebody is hot-tempered, becomes angry very soon and shouts and chastises people, and other devotees are getting disturbed. So then should he make an endeavor to change this quality, or just wait for who knows when this hot-tempered quality will reduce? Should he make some endeavor or no? Otherwise, he'll be offending other devotees and other people, and that will be an impediment in his progress.
Yes, he should make the endeavor.
Huh?
Yes, he should make the endeavor also.
Yes. So why? Because the ultimate goal of devotional service is to please the Vaishnavas and to please Krishna. So that's a part of devotional service. So then whatever is not conducive for that, whatever qualities, demoniac qualities, which are not conducive to pleasing the Vaishnavas and Krishna, then one must try to change. All right?
Yes, Guruji.
Okay. Anything else?
Words from the English question. 15 plus translation.
Guruji, one more little small note. I think it is related to English. Like such. This 15th verse, Prabhupada translates there as bolts from the blue. So what does it mean exactly?
Which 15th verse?
Bolts from the blue. This is something related to English. I couldn't.
Just see how the smoke and silver sky appears with the earth and mountain throbbing. Just hear the cloudless thunder and see the bolts from the blue. Nirghataha. Bolts from the blue. What exactly this refers to? I'll have to just check. What does this mean exactly? All right, I'll just check and get back.
Yes.
Is there something more, or can we proceed with the 15th chapter?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can go ahead.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay, so we go to chapter 15. The Pandavas retire timely. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayana Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaivo Narottamam.
Devam Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Tato Jayo Udhirahe.
Okay, so let's recite the first verse. Suta uvacha evam Krishna sakha Krishno bhratra ragya vikalpitaha nana shankaspadam rupam Krishna vishlesha karshitaha. Suta Goswami said, Arjuna, the celebrated friend of Lord Krishna, was grief-stricken because of a strong feeling of separation from Krishna, over and above all Maharaj Yudhishthir's speculative inquiries. Prabhupada writes on the purport, being too much aggrieved, Arjuna practically became choked up, and therefore it was not possible for him to reply properly to the various speculative inquiries of Maharaj Yudhishthir. Okay, so here the first 17 verses. Actually, more than that, actually. 21. Almost 27 verses, actually. So Arjuna is speaking about how Krishna was always protecting them. He's remembering all the incidents where Krishna empowered them, protected them. All right. And then the rest of the chapter is talking about the Pandavas retiring from the kingdom. Okay, fine. So on this first verse, Srila Prabhupada has given a lecture. So we took a part of that. Okay, somebody could read this.
Being too much aggrieved.
From the screen?
Screen is shared.
You can't see the screen?
No.
Yeah.
Yes. उधर से करेंगे नहीं उधर से करेंगे
Now can you see?
Lord's dealing with Arjuna and the Pandavas. So Evam Krishna.
Sakha Krishna.
So Evam Krishna Sakha Krishna. Arjuna's name is Krishna Sakha, and he is also called sometimes Krishna because Arjuna's bodily feature was almost similar to Krishna's bodily feature. So he was morose, being separated from Krishna, and his elder brother was suggesting whether he was morose for this reason or that reason or this reason. Actually, he was unhappy on account of being separated from Krishna. Similarly, not only Arjuna, all of us, we are also, as Krishna, Arjuna, he is also a living, as Krishna, Arjuna is also a living entity. We are also living entity. So we are also unhappy because we are separated from Krishna. These modern philosophers or scientists, they may suggest that they may go on thinking otherwise, that they can improve the world situation in their own way. But that is not possible. We are unhappy on account of being separated from Krishna. They do not know that. Just like a child. A child is crying. Nobody can say why he is crying. But actually a child is generally in crying condition, being separated from the mother.
Okay, so Srila Prabhupada here is talking about the main reason why one is unhappy in this material world because of being separated from Krishna. We are unhappy on account of being separated from Krishna. So as long as that separation from Krishna, as long as the connection to Krishna is not established, the jiva can actually never become happy. So it's only when that connection is properly established that one finds real happiness and satisfaction. So pumsam paro dharmo yato bhakti radokshe ahituki apartihara yatma suprasiddhati. At all levels, the word atma there refers to body, mind, soul. At all levels, one becomes satisfied and happy when one performs devotional service by which that connection to Krishna is re-established. And so therefore, the important point is that it is very essential to establish a firm connection to Krishna. Otherwise, there is always going to be a feeling of something lacking, a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of despondency. And that's what is the classic example of Vyasadeva. So as long as he did not sufficiently glorify Krishna, that means establishing that connection to Krishna, then there was despondency. And so therefore, it's only that proper connection to Krishna by the practice of devotional service, the appropriate following of rules and regulations as given by the Acharya, that can satisfy one. We find even in the pastime of Dhruva Maharaj. So when Dhruva Maharaj was angry and dissatisfied because of being insulted by the stepmother and father, then his mother Suniti said that you go and find Krishna because only he can satisfy you. And she says that I'm one mother. How much love can one mother give? But when you find Krishna, then he can give you the love of hundreds and hundreds of mothers. Then you'll be totally satisfied. So the important point is that that connection to Krishna is what gives total satisfaction to the soul. And so if we are finding some dissatisfaction in our practices of devotional service, then the question to ask is my connection to Krishna good? Because if that connection is there, then one will be satisfied. So here we find that here Arjuna, he's experiencing separation from Krishna, and of course Arjuna is experiencing transcendental feelings of separation, which are of course a cause of ecstasy, but then in the material condition it causes misery because of lack of that connection. Okay, fine. Going to text 2. Due to grief, Arjuna's mouth and lotus-like heart had dried up. Therefore, his body lost all luster. Now, remembering the Supreme Lord, he could hardly utter a word in reply. With great difficulty, he checked the tears of grief that smeared his eyes. He was very distressed because Lord Krishna was out of his sight, and he increasingly felt affection for him. Text 4. Remembering Lord Krishna and his well-wishes, benefactions, intimate familial relations, and his chariot driving, Arjuna, overwhelmed and breathing very heavily, began to speak. Sakhyam Maitrim Sauradam Cha Saratyadishu Samsmaran Nripam Agrajam Iti Aha Bhashpa Gadgadaya Gira. So this is the relationship of Arjuna with Krishna, which is being mentioned by these three words, Sakhyam, Maitrim, and Sauradham. So if you see the word-to-word meaning, Sakhyam proper translates as well-wishing. So that's Sakhyam. So Sakhyam, Vishwanath Thakur, he says Sakhyam means one is affectionate dealings. One is affectionate dealings and like well-wishers and thinking about the benefit of the other person. Maitrim, he says, is there is friendship accompanied by dasyam. That's what he says is Maitrim. And Sauradam, proper translates intimately related. And Vishwanath Thakur says that it refers to friendship along with some Vatsalya Bhav. So then when there's some Vatsalya Bhav, then there is more intimacy. So that's how Arjuna was related to Krishna in different ways. And of course, he became Sarathya Adishu, so he became chariot driver. So Arjuna is remembering all this, and so he was feeling greatly emotionally disturbed, and so Bhashpa, he was heavily breathing, Gadgadaya, and then he began to speak. Okay, text 5, let's recite. Arjuna uvacha vanchitoham maharaja harina bandhurupina yena me paritam tejo deva vismapanam mahat. Arjuna said, O king, the supreme personality of Godhead Hari, who treated me exactly like an intimate friend, has left me alone. Thus, my astounding power, which astonished even the demigods, is no longer with me. So Arjuna is saying, Vanchitah aham. He has left me. Who has left? Harina Bandhurupina. So the Supreme Lord, who acted like a very intimate friend, Bandhu. So he has left me, I become bereft, aparitam. And then, as a result of that, I've lost my teja, which caused vismay, which astonished even the devatas. Okay, this is an important purport. Somebody would like to read the purport, please.
In the Bhagavad Gita 10.41, the Lord says, anyone specifically powerful and opulent in wealth, strength, beauty, knowledge, and all that is materially desirable is to be considered but a product of an insignificant portion of the complete whole of my energy. No one therefore can be independently powerful in any measure without being endowed by the Lord. When the Lord descends on the earth along with his eternal ever-liberated associates, he not only displays the divine energy possessed by himself, but also empowers his associate devotees with the required energy to execute his mission of incarnation. It is also stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.5 that the Lord and his eternal associates descend on the earth many times, but the Lord remembers all the different roles of incarnations, where the associates by his supreme will forget them. Similarly, the Lord takes away with him all his associates when he disappears from the earth. The power and energy which were bestowed upon Arjuna were required for fulfillment of the mission of the Lord. But when his mission was fulfilled, the emergency powers were withdrawn from Arjuna, because the astounding powers of Arjuna, which were astonishing even to the denizens of heaven, were no longer required, and they were not meant for going back home, back to God. If endowment of powers
and withdrawal of powers with the Lord are possible, even for a great devotee like Arjuna, or even the demigods in heaven, then what to speak of the ordinary living beings who are but fixed compared to such great souls? The lesson is, therefore, that no one should be puffed up for his powers borrowed from the Lord. The sane man should rather feel obliged to the Lord for such benefactions and must utilize such power for the service of the Lord. Such power can be withdrawn at any time by the Lord. So the best use of such power and opulence is to engage them in the service of the Lord.
Yes. So we were discussing this point yesterday also to some extent, that ultimately all powers, all opulences are coming from the Lord. They must be used in the service of the Lord. If they're not used in the service of the Lord, then they'll become a cause of pride. And when there's pride, then everything is withdrawn, everything is taken away. So can you give some examples? There are a lot of examples in the scriptures of people becoming proud because of their opulence and then losing the powers. So can we have a few examples?
Hare Krishna. We have the example of Maharsan Sutta. When Balramji came, then he killed him.
Yes, so he was proud of what?
His scholarship learning.
Yes. So there also we find Balram, as he sees Romaharshan not offering respects to him, then Lord Balram is contemplating and he is thinking, such a learned person, direct disciple of Vyasadev, but still he has not developed any good qualities like humility. Therefore, all his learning is useless, like an actor playing his part on stage. And so he thinks that I have descended into this world to put an end to such hypocrisy. And so thinking, picked up Kushagras and finished it. So, yes, so the opulence makes of learning, makes one proud. We do find even in Srila Prabhupada's Leela, we do find some devotees who became proud of their learning, and as a result, they could not continue in their services in ISKCON and to Srila Prabhupada. So therefore, one has to always guard against this great enemy of pride. Okay, some other examples?
Indra offended Brihaspati and he lost his family post.
Yes, that's right. So Indra became proud of what?
His opulences, wealth, riches, opulences.
Yes, his Aishwarya. Okay, some other examples?
Keshav Kashmiri.
Who's that?
Keshav Kashmiri.
Yes, Keshav Kashmiri. He became proud of?
His scholarship learning.
Yes, his scholarship learning. Can we have some answers from the congregational devotees?
Prabhuji, can we quote the example of gopis when they become proud in the rasa dance?
Okay, to some degree true.
Okay.
King Indradyum, he became proud and he did not respect one of the sages, and then he became Gajendra.
Okay, fine. That's a good example. Okay.
King Nahusha.
Yes,
He became Indra, and then he wanted to enjoy, and then he became a snake.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Can we also quote Devanand Pandit?
Yes, definitely. Yes, Devanand Pandit. Yes, he was a great orator of the Bhagavatam, but again, yes, there were no. He didn't have good qualities, and of course, he was also giving a wrong interpretation of the Bhagavatam. Yes, that's true. Some others?
Vallabhacharya, like he was also proud of his scholarship. And then
Yes. So what did he do? What was the? How did the pride manifest?
He told that he has written better commentary than Sridhar Swami. And
Yes, that's true. How did Mahaprabhu respond to that?
one who does not accept the Swami is a prostitute.
That's right. So indirectly, Mahaprabhu chastised him. And so, yes, so therefore we find that there is always a tendency when one has some opulence, some power, then the tendency is to become proud. And then the result of the pride is then the opulence is taken away. That's what happens, one is destroyed. So therefore, as Prabhupada writes in other places, one should not become proud of borrowed plumes. So ultimately, whatever opulence one has, whatever ability one has, whatever skills one has, everything is being awarded by the Lord. If the Lord doesn't give, if the Lord doesn't allow one to use, what can one do? One is totally helpless, totally helpless. In one moment, everything can be taken away. So just like we see in the case of Indra, often at Brihaspati, next moment he lost his powers. So therefore, it is always very important that we keep reminding ourselves that whatever I have is because of the Lord's grace. That's what Prabhupada writes here, that if endowment of powers and withdrawal of powers by the Lord are possible even for a great devotee like Arjuna or even demigods, and what to speak of ordinary living beings, but figs compared to such grace, figs, insignificant. So therefore, there is nothing to be proud of in this world. And therefore, such a great emphasis has been laid on the quality of humility. And as we are definitely aware, that in the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, Krishna is describing the process of jnanam, knowledge, jnanam. So of course, it is the process by which one liberates the soul from the engagement of the body made of 24 elements. So there are various sadhanas that are being described, how one can free the soul from this body. And the first quality he mentions there is amanitvam. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that if the process to achieve the goal is like a staircase, then the first step of that staircase is amanitvam, humility. So without that basic concept of humility, understanding that I'm insignificant in front of the Lord, then it becomes very difficult for one to make progress. So therefore we were reading yesterday also Prabhupada's writing that the Lord becomes inclined to a Brahmana of quality, not of false prestige. So an important quality of the Brahmana is humility. And then again, Krishna describes the surrendering process in the 15th chapter, verse number 5. Again, nirmana moha jita sanga dosha. Again, starting with nirmana, giving up the mana. The mana is because of moha. Prabhupada explains in that purport that why one becomes proud, because one doesn't understand that one comes into this world for a short period of time, and then one has to leave everything without a doubt. But even though he comes for a short period of time and does some little work here, he thinks he's great. So it is only because of the bodily conception of life, the moha, that one becomes proud. So, but when one gets out of the moha, when one gets out of the ignorance, one understands everything in proper perspective, that how I'm so much dependent on the Lord for everything, then automatically one becomes humble. And then that attracts the grace of the Lord. In a lecture, Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj tells that, you may have heard, but he gives the example that just like to hold any liquid, some patra is required, a container is required, depending upon what the liquid is or what the content is, a different type of patra may be required. And he gives the example that just like if one wants to hold tiger's milk, somebody knows what is a container that can hold tiger's milk without leaking?
Gold pot.
Yes, A gold pot is required. Nothing else can contain that. So he says, similarly, the patra which can hold the Lord's mercy is the Trinadapi verse. That's the patra by which one can hold the Lord's mercy without leaking. So the mercy is available, but then if one wants to hold it, then this is the quality that is required. And therefore, as Vinod Bhaktisaraj Thakur also said, that this verse must be strung on the thread of the holy name and always put around the neck. So great emphasis is laid on that, because without that, it becomes very difficult to progress on the path of devotional service. So that's the meaning of being Krishna conscious, to be always conscious of the fact that whatever I'm able to do in Krishna's service, or anyone for that matter, is only because of Krishna's grace, because he's sanctioning that. Nothing is mine. So then automatically, when one understands nothing is mine, then automatically one becomes humble. Then one will be in the right state of consciousness to act and behave properly. So that's what Arjuna is reflecting, that how now Krishna is gone and all his powers are gone. Okay. So, okay, just wait a second. Okay, we'll come. We'll take questions in a little while. All right.
Yes.
Okay, 6th verse.
Section.
I have just lost him whose separation for a moment would render all the universes unfavorable and void, like bodies without life. So Arjuna is remembering what is the role of Krishna within our lives. So without him, everything is useless. Even the universes will not sustain themselves without the presence of the Lord. And then he's thinking, I've lost him. I've lost such a great personality. Text 7. Only by his merciful strength was I able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupada for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow, I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Draupadi. So now he's remembering all the various incidents and all the various circumstances in which Krishna's mercy and Krishna's presence was so prominently felt. So an important way by which we can try to remember Krishna's causeless mercy upon us is to remember how the Lord has helped us in so many cases, in so many instances throughout our life. The tendency in this material world is to forget. That is the tendency. And so when we forget how the Lord has played such a vital role in my life, and of course, when we speak of the Lord, the devotees go along with him. We cannot separate the two. So the tendency is sometimes is to forget. After spending some years in devotional service, then we tend to forget how so many devotees were involved for me to come to the path of devotional service. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said that to make one devotee requires gallons of blood. So many people have spent so many gallons of blood to make me a devotee or trying to be a devotee, but so many have spent so much of time in trying to give me devotional service, encourage me in my devotional service, help me in my devotional service. So many Vaishnavas have helped me. So then, if I don't remember that, I'll be ungrateful. And then I will not be in a proper consciousness to respect all the Vaishnavas who have helped me. So therefore, as Arjuna is doing over here, it's good sometimes to remind ourselves, to remember. Prabhupada writes this in the purpose to the Ajamil section. When Ajamil regrets, he begins to regret that what a rogue and thief I was. But then by the causeless mercy of the Lord, the Vaishnavas, now I'm being transformed. So Prabhupada writes in those purports there that every Vaishnav, every devotee should remember what his position was before coming to the Krishna consciousness movement and what his position is now. And who is responsible for that? Otherwise, sometimes we tend to forget and then we become ungrateful and disrespectful to those very devotees who have helped us so much to bring us to devotional service. And surely the Lord will not appreciate those ungrateful dealings. And so therefore, it's very important to keep reminding ourselves. Then we will always have that grateful and respectful attitude towards all the Vaishnavas who have helped us, who are helping us in our progress in devotional service. So here we find Arjuna is remembering. Again, we find in the first canto itself, in the pastime of Ashwatthama, how when Ashwatthama was captured and brought before Yudhishthira Maharaj and Draupadi, and the decision was to be taken whether he should be killed or not, then Draupadi says that, remember, after all, he is the son of your teacher. So be grateful. So just imagine what was Draupadi's situation. 5 sons were killed mercilessly. So sometimes some devotee may insult us, may cause some inconvenience to us, and we become so angry. And we find it so difficult to forgive. But here, just see the situation. 5 sons have been killed. What's the situation for a mother? So painful. But yet, Draupadi is telling the Pandavas to remember and be grateful to the fact that he is the son of the teacher. Even in those painful situations, Draupadi is being grateful. So, a very important quality. And so therefore, when we tend to get angry on some devotees, then we should try and remember what contributions they have made in our practices of devotional service. Change the perception. So much depends on the perception. So therefore, in the Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami is saying in the 6th verse, Drishtei svabhava janitei vapushasya doshair na prakritatvam iha bhakta janasya pashet. So, drishti, everything depends on drishti, everything depends on what's the perception. This is na prakritatvam, don't have a material perception of Vaishnavas. So according to the swabhava, they may have some apparent imperfections, either in the body or in the mind, so many conditionings. They may be there because of the swabhava, because of the influence of the modes. But then see, Gangam Basamna Kalu Budbuddha Fena Panket Brahma Dravatvam Apagachati Nira Dharme. See the Brahma Dravatvam, see the connection to the Brahman, see the connection to the Supreme Lord, see their connection to the Supreme Lord, how they are engaged in devotional service. See that and not see the apparent faults which may be there due to the swabhava, due to the influence of the modes. So when one sees that connection to the Supreme, the sincere practice of devotional service, how they have helped us in our practices of devotional service, then our drishti, our perception will change. And then we will be able to develop that gratitude and respect towards the Lord and the devotees. So Arjuna is remembering. So of course we are well aware of these pastimes that Prabhupada is explaining in the purport. Okay, text 8. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven Indradev along with his demigod associates, and thus enable the fire god to devastate the Canto forest. And only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from the blazing Canto forest, and thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of Rajasuya Yajna and paid you tributes. Okay. So, Prabhupada is bringing out some important lessons from this pastime. And he says that Maya was also materialist like that, and he knew the art of creating such wonderful things, and yet Lord Krishna wanted to kill him. When he was chased both by the fire and by the wheel of Lord Krishna, he took shelter of such a devotee as Arjuna, who saved him from the wrath of the fire of Lord Shri Krishna. Devotees are therefore more merciful than the Lords, and in devotional service, the mercy of a devotee is more valuable than the mercy of the Lord. Both the fire and the Lord ceased from chasing the demon as soon as both of them saw that the demon was given shelter by such a devotee as Arjuna. And then he wanted to do some service to show gratefulness, and then he built this house. So the point is that yes, the devotees are more merciful than the Lord, even though the Lord may sometimes reject, the devotee is more merciful. I remember one pastime told by Dinabandhu Prabhu, where he was talking of how the grandfather is sometimes more merciful than the father. So he told the pastor there was one devotee in the early days of ISKCON named as Karthikeyan. So one day this Karthikeyan had made some sweet item. I think so it was halwa made of dalia, not made of rava, suji, but made of dalia. And he made that and brought to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada tasted that, and Prabhupada was very upset. He didn't like it. Prabhupada was very upset. He said, "What have you made?" So the devotee felt really dejected that Prabhupada didn't accept his offering. And so he went to the temple and he sat in front of the photograph of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and prayed that I tried to do the service for Srila Prabhupada, your disciple, and he's upset. So please save me. And he was praying, and just as he was praying, then he heard Srila Prabhupada's voice saying, "Karthikeyan, come here." And then Srila Prabhupada called Karthikeyan, and then he said, "No, actually what you have made is all right." So then he appreciated what he made, and then the matter was settled. So in any case, so the point is that how so Dirmal Prabhu was making the point that how the grandfather or the previous acharya is more merciful. So in any case, the point is that how the devotees are always more merciful than the lords sometimes. And so can you give some examples for this Siddhanta? The devotees are more merciful than the Lord.
Kala Krishnadas.
What happened?
Rejected him, and Nityanand Prabhu and other devotees sent him to Mayapur, Navadvip.
Right, right. Yes, that's a very good example. Thank you, Prabhu. Some other examples?
So, in case of Amrish Maharaj and Durvas Muni case, you can see that Amrish
Yes, that's right. So the Sudarshan Chakra was chasing, but only when Amrish Maharaj forgave them, yes, the Lord accepted. What else?
Hare Krishna Guruji, Devanand Pinto offended Srivas Thakur by the help of Vakreshwar Pandit.
Yes, yes, good example. Yes, because Vakreshwar, he did service for Vakreshwar Pandit, then the Lord forgave. Yes. Any more?
King Prataprudra, Lord did not want to meet him, but the devotees made all the different arrangements and suggestions. And
yes, but more specifically?
Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya.
Yes, there were two reasons. Of course, one is Sarvam Bhattacharya, and there's another important person.
Ramanand Rai.
Yes, Ramanand Rai. What happened with Ramanand Rai?
He was telling about how he was treated by Prataprudra Maharaj, how he was given pension, how he's such a wonderful. He was always glorifying him.
Yes, that's right. So because Ramanand Rai allowed Maharaj Prataprudra allowed Ramanand Rai to give up his government post with full payments as pension. And so therefore then, because Ramanand Rai was very pleased with Maharaj Prataprudra, then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was pleased. And then he said that because Maharaj Prataprudra has pleased a wonderful Vaishnava like you, therefore definitely he'll become the recipient of the Lord's mercy. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, citing a common Western saying, please me, please my dog. So why? Because in the Western world, the person who's most dear to most people is the dog. And so if the dog is pleased, then the owner of the dog becomes pleased. So similarly, of course, the Vaishnava is the Lord's dog, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. And so therefore, by pleasing the Vaishnavas, then the Lord becomes pleased. So that's the Siddhanta. Okay. Text 9. Your respectable younger brother who possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants, killed by his grace Jarasandha, whose feet were worshipped by many kings. So this is referring to Bhima. These kings had been brought for sacrifice in Jarasandha's Mahabhairav Yajna, but they were thus released. Later they paid tribute to your majesty. So Prabhupada is describing about the story of Jarasandha and all that, and his fight with Bhima. Text 10. It was he only who loosened the hair of all the wives of the miscreants who dared open the cluster of your queen's hair, which had been nicely dressed and sanctified for the great Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. At that time, she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in her eyes. So here also Prabhupada makes the point at the end of the first paragraph. The Lord can tolerate insults upon himself by any miscreant, because the Father tolerates even insults from the Son, but he never tolerates insults upon his devotees. By insulting a great soul, one has to forego all the results of pious acts and benedictions also. And so Prabhupada also says in his lectures that Arjuna was ready to forgive and not fight the war, But Krishna, he didn't forgive. So therefore, he said, no, you fight, you kill them. So the Lord does not tolerate the insults upon the devotees. Just like, again, we have so many examples of this principle in the Shastra. Some examples for this? The Lord can tolerate insults to himself, but not insults to his devotees.
Nityanand Prabhu was insulted by Jagai Madai. So Lord couldn't tolerate that, although Nityanand Prabhu forgave.
Yes, that's right. Good example.
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very unhappy with Devanand Pandit.
Yes, okay, because he insulted Srivas Thakur. And then we have all those examples, Gopal Chapal and Gopal Chakravarti, and all those examples we have where the Lord didn't tolerate the insults to his devotees.
Also, Prabhuji, like when in the battlefield, when Bhishma was really making Arjuna feel like losing, Lord really became a Chakrapani and he tried to attack me.
Yes, that's right. So he was ready to give up his vow not to lift up any weapon. So the Lord is ready to give up his own reputation just to protect his devotee. That's because the devotees are dear to the Lord. Text 11. During our exile, Durvas Muni, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, intrigued with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. At that time, he, Lord Krishna, simply by accepting the remnants of food, saved us. By accepting food thus, the assembly of Munis, while bathing in the river, well sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were also satisfied. Again, Prabhupada is describing the whole pastime, so we know that. Now, again, Prabhupada makes an important point about 4 paragraphs down. When the devotees are put into difficulty, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. So Draupadi was thinking of Lord Krishna in that dangerous position, and the all-pervading Lord could at once know the dangerous position of his devotees. He therefore came. So that's an important principle. When the devotees are put in difficulty, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. And so that is also the reason why sometimes the Lord purposefully puts the devotees into difficulty. This is explained in the commentary to the Tatyano Anukampam verse, Brahmaji's praise. So there the Acharyas explain that because even in Gajendra's pastime also, Srila Prabhupada explains in those purports, that when the devotees are put into some difficult situation, then the devotees actually thank the Lord for putting them into that situation, because it gives them an opportunity to think of the Lord more intensely. So we all have that experience. So when everything is going on very smoothly, very wonderfully, so then our devotional service goes on, but then the intensity may be lacking. But then when there is some crisis, there is some difficulty, then one is forced to think of the Lord more intensely, intensify the devotional service. It reminds me of an incident many years ago when once there was, in the early morning hours, as devotees were preparing to come for Mangalarti, there was a small earthquake in Mumbai. So in the Chowpatty temple, everything started things started shaking and falling, and there were these Gurukul children. They were all screaming so intensely, so loudly, and then they began chanting the Narsim prayers with such great intensity, chanting the holy names. Of course, the earthquake didn't last long. But then His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, when he gave a class that morning, so he commented on this earthquake, and he said, such was the intensity of the chanting, I wished the earthquake should go on forever, so that there's that intense practice of devotional service. So sometimes the Lord purposefully puts the devotees into such situations, difficult situations, especially when the devotees become a little lax in their practices, then just to increase that intensity, the Lord sometimes puts the devotees in difficulties, into crisis situations. But then an intelligent devotee need not wait for such crisis to come, but understand that actually every moment is a potential crisis in the material world. So when one understands that, then in all circumstances, one will always practice devotional service with great intensity and not wait for that crisis to come to intensify devotional service. Padam padam yad vipadam natesha. I'm sure recently in a lecture, His Holiness Radha Maharaj was saying that how it is padam padam, it is not alternate steps or anything like that, but at every step there is potential danger. And so therefore, understanding that nature of this material world, then at every moment that practice of devotional service needs to be intense. At least that should be our endeavor. The example is also given in a purport in the 11th canto, that just like we may have experience of watching television very peacefully in the evening time with family and friends and watching one of our favorite movies or serials or whatever, and eating some potato chips. I'm sure all of us have experienced, right? But what if there is a poisonous cobra sitting right behind with the mouth wide open? How many of us will peacefully sit and watch television? Obviously no one. So if one is ignorant of the presence of that cobra, then yes, then one will continue. So similarly, so the cobra is the Kala Sarpa. The Kala Sarpa is waiting with its mouth open at every moment. Every moment is a potential death threat. But then if one is unaware or one is in ignorance, then one will not take it seriously. But the fact remains that the Kala Sarpa is waiting at any moment. So therefore, every step is a potential danger. And so therefore, at every moment is actually an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. Prabhupada is giving some lessons at the end of this purport. He says, this incident proves that the Lord is the greatest mystic and therefore he is known as Yogeshwar. Another instruction is that every householder must offer food to the Lord, and the result will be that everyone, even a company of guests numbering 10,000, will be satisfied because of the Lord's being satisfied. That is the way of devotional service. So everyone can be satisfied by offering to the Lord's. Okay, text 12. It was by his influence only that in a fight I was able to astonish the personality of God, Lord Shiva, and his wife, the daughter of Mount Himalaya. Thus he, Lord Shiva, became pleased with me and awarded me his own weapon. Other demigods also delivered their respective weapons to me, but in addition I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half-elevated seat. So he got a seat on the same, he shared seats with Indra, because Indra was pleased with Arjuna's service which he rendered. So at the end of the first paragraph here, Prabhupada writes, the instances described by Arjuna during his friendly dealings with Lord Sri Krishna are instructive for all who may be convinced by the lessons that one can achieve all favors simply by pleasing the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Whereas the devotees or worshippers of the demigods may achieve only partial benefits, which are also perishable, just as the demigods themselves are. Okay, so by pleasing Lord Krishna, then one gets all favors. Another significance of the present verse is that Arjuna, by the grace of Lord Shri Krishna, was able to reach the heavenly planet even with the self-same body, and was honored by the heavenly demigod Indradev, being seated with him half elevated. So one can reach the heavenly planets by the pious acts recommended in the Shastras and the kind of fruitive activities. Okay, text 13. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradev, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with the Gandiva bow to kill the demon named Nivat Kavacha. O King, descendant of Ajamedha, at the present moment I am bereft of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. So Prabhupada writes here, the Lord is all-powerful, and by His grace, His pure devotee can be as powerful as he may desire, and there is no limit to it. So there's no limit to how much the Lord can empower a devotee if the Lord desires. So as Srila Prabhupada very humbly stated, that actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Supreme Lord. He could have spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, but then He left some service for us to do. So we see that the Lord empowered Srila Prabhupada to do something so inconceivable and so amazing. So sometimes the Lord Himself can do so many wonderful things, but then He wants to give the credit to His devotees, as we see in the case of Lord Ramachandra and the monkey soldiers. So by the grace of the Lord, then He can empower. And when the Lord withdraws His power from anyone, He is powerless by the will of the Lord. Text 14. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of His friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. And only by His grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of brilliance. So Arjuna is remembering that how the military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there were sharks and Timingla fish, such powerful warriors, but he was able to overcome all of them only by the grace of Krishna. And then also when they were hiding at Virat's place, that time also the Kauravas attacked, and then Arjuna in disguise, then he defeated them. And that's what he's talking about, the cows and helmets. Text 15. It was He only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone, and who in the battlefield withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, led by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shali, etc. The arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but He, Lord Shri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. So the Lord, only because of His presence, then Arjuna could defeat all these great Kauravas. 16. Great generals like Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Bhurishrava, Susharma, Shalya, Jayadratha, and Balika all directed the invincible weapons against me, but by His, Lord Krishna's grace, they could not even touch a hair on my head. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj, the supreme devotee of Lord Narasimhadev, was unaffected by the weapons the demons used against him. Prabhupada, in one lecture, he speaks about how actually the chariot of Arjuna was so battered by the weapons of the enemy soldiers that actually the chariot could not sustain. It was only by the grace of Krishna that the chariots actually sustained all the weapons that were hitting it. And then he tells the pastime of how at the end of the war, Krishna tells Arjuna to first leave the chariots. Arjuna, as a matter of etiquette, says, no, my dear Lord, you please leave, then I will. So, but then Krishna orders him, no, you first leave and go far distance away from here. So Arjuna gets down from the chariot and goes far distance. Then Krishna gets down. And as soon as Krishna gets down, the chariot bursts into flames, showing that actually the chariot was sustained by the power of Krishna. Otherwise, it would have long back broken down by all the powerful weapons that were hitting from the opposite party. So that's how Krishna was always protecting. And so here he says, they could not even touch a hair on my head. That was how Krishna was protecting, as he was protecting Prahlad. Prabhupada speaking in detail about Karna and all these other personalities. Text 17. It was by his mercy only that my enemies neglected to kill me when I descended from my chariot to get water for my thirsty horses. And it was due to my lack of esteem for my Lord that I did engage him as my chariot driver, for he is worshipped and offered services by the best men to attain salvation. So somebody knows this pastime when when Arjuna, he descended from chariot to get water for the horses.
Killing of Jayadratha. On that day when Bhishma, Arjuna had promised to kill Jayadratha, and Arjuna was fighting so vigorously that even the horses were tired. So in between the war, Krishna stopped the chariot, Arjuna came down, and Arjuna fought like anything, and in the meanwhile, Krishna created an artificial pond that meant the thirst of the horses, crushed them, and again tied them to the chariot, and the Arjuna again came on the chariot.
That's right. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. So it was during the killing of Jayadratha that Arjuna, he stopped to get water for his thirsty horses. But then Vishnu Thakur says that by the presence of Krishna, everyone's minds were put into a state of bewilderment. They lost concentration, and therefore, even though they had a chance to attack Arjuna at that time, they did not do that. And here he says Arjuna is getting into the dasya bhav. He's remembering how he is supposed to be a servant of Krishna and he is supposed to serve Krishna, but Krishna served him as a charioteer. And so he's remembering that how actually he's supposed to be worshipped and offered services, but then I took services from him, and he's feeling regretful. Okay, text 18. O king, his jokings and frank talks were pleasing and beautifully decorated with smiles. His addresses unto me as, O son of Pritha, O friend, O son of the Kuru dynasty, and all such heartiness are now remembered by me, and thus I am overwhelmed. Text 19. Generally, both of us used to live together and sleep, sit, and loiter together. And at the time of advertising oneself for acts of chivalry, sometimes if there were any irregularity, I used to reproach him by saying, my friend, you are very truthful. Even in those hours when his value was minimized, he being the supreme soul used to tolerate all those utterings of mine, excusing me exactly as a true friend excuses his true friend, or a father excuses his son. What does this verse remind you of? Something similar somewhere?
Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, Sakheti Matva Prasabha Meduktam.
Yes. So there also, Arjuna is remembering his friendly dealings with Krishna, and there also he uses exactly the same examples that he's saying here. Please forgive me like a father forgives his son, or a friend forgives a friend. Prabhupada makes a point in the purport. He says, the Lord relishes the reproaches of friends, parents, or fiancés more than the Vedic hymns offered to him by great learned scholars and religionists in an official fashion. So the Lord is more attracted by the love of his devotees, even though he may be sort of chastised and rebuked. He appreciates that more because there is love in those dealings. That's what the Lord is looking for. He's looking for that loving dealings, because that's for the benefit of the jiva. And so even though there may be great mantra, chanting of mantras and so many elaborate rituals being performed, but if that's without bhakti, without devotion, then the Lord is not much interested. And so the classic example we see is the wives of the brahmanas. So the brahmanas were performing all elaborate Vedic rituals, but then they didn't know the purpose and they didn't please the Lord. But the wives were simple. They just had bhakti, devotion to the Lord, simply want to please the Lord. And so even though they were not performing elaborate rituals and sacrifices, but they pleased the Lord. And so therefore, we have to understand the important aspect of bhakti, and that is the love and devotion with which services are offered. So as it is said, it's not the quantity of service, it's not what service, but it is the quality of service and the intention behind which the service is done that's more important. 20. O Emperor, now I am separated from my friend and dearmost well-wisher, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore my heart appears to be void of everything. In his absence, I have been defeated by a number of infidel cowherd men while I was guarding the bodies of all the wives of Krishna. So he's remembering that how, so previously he had so much of power when Lord Krishna was there by Krishna's grace, but now Krishna having gone, his powers have gone, and has been defeated by even some insignificant coward men. Of course, Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that. He's explaining the history of how there were these heavenly damsels who were cursed by Ashtavakra Muni, and therefore they were going to be stolen by thieves. But then they also got the benediction that the thieves would be Krishna himself, and they would be reunited with Krishna. So otherwise, if they were touched by some other, if by any ordinary men, they would not have remains in their bodies. So basically, it was Krishna only who came. But then Arjuna still makes the point that he was defeated because he lost his power. Text 21. Let's recite. Tadvai dhanusta ishava sarato hayaste soham rati nirpatayo yata anamanti sarvam shanena tadabud asat ishariktam bhasman hutam kuhakaradham ivoktamusham. I have the very same Gandiva bow, the same arrows, the same chariot drawn by the same horses, and I use them as the same Arjuna to whom all the kings offer their due respects. But in the absence of Lord Krishna, all of them at a moment's notice have become null and void. It is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes, accumulate money with a magic wand, or sowing seeds on barren lands. Somebody can read the purport.
As we have discussed more than once, one should not be puffed up by the borrowed looms. All energies and powers are derived from the Supreme Source, Lord Krishna, and they act as long as he desires and cease to function as soon as he withdraws. All electrical energies are received from the powerhouse, and as soon as the powerhouse stops supplying energy, the bulbs are of no use. In a moment's time, such energies can be generated or withdrawn by the supreme will of the Lord. Material civilization without the blessings of the Lord is child's play only. As long as the parents allow the child to play, it is all right. As soon as the parents withdraw, the child has to stop. Human civilization and all activities thereof must be dovetailed with the supreme blessing of the Lord. And without this blessing, all advancement of human civilization is like decoration on a dead body. It is said here that a dead civilization and its activities are something like clarified butter on ashes, the accumulation of money by a magic wand, and the sowing of seeds in a barren land.
So Arjun is remembering how now he has the same Gandiya bow, same horse, everything is there, but then still no power. Why? Isha Riktam. Isha Riktam. Because the Isha, the Supreme Lord, is absent. And so therefore, it is exactly like offering clarified butter on ashes. So if one puts butter on ashes, there is no results. So similarly, one may have a lot of power, but unless there is sanction of the Lord, it's all going to be useless. Or accumulating money with a magic wand. So a magician brings some money, but so that money is going to disappear. So it's totally insubstantial. So as we were discussing yesterday also, so that connection to the Lord is very important. Then whatever we do will have potency. Otherwise, we may speak very eloquently. We may have so many talents, skills, so much may be there. But Isha Riktam, if the connection to the Isha is not there, then it's all going to be futile. Sowing seeds on barren lands, there won't be any good result. So, therefore, the important point is the connection to the Supreme Lord, as the connection of the bulbs and everything to the powerhouse. And so Prabhupada is quoting that verse, Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jata Shastra Japas Tapaha. What's the next line? What is the next line? The last line is Mandalam Lokaranjana. What is the third line? Somebody knows? Aprana Seva Dehasya. Yes. Aprana Seva Dehasya Mandalam Lokaranjana. So Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jata Shastra Japas Tapaha. So one may have a great birth in a great family, or one may be a great scholar of the Shastras. One may perform so much of tapasya, and one may chant so many mantras, japa. So all that one may do. But Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya, if the bhakti element is missing in all these activities, then it is just like a prana seva dehas. It is just like the deha without the prana, dead body. So if dead body is decorated very beautifully, then what is the use? So the person, the dead man, is not going to be pleased. So other people may be pleased, but the dead man is not going to be pleased with all the decoration. So similarly, we may do so many wonderful things, but if the bhakti element is missing, then it's Mandanam Lokaranjanam. Therefore, the important lesson to learn from all this pastime over here is how it is important that we focus on the bhakti element. That means, are my activities pleasing to Guru and Krishna? That is the important question to ask. That is the bhakti element. So otherwise, one may do great things, but if Guru and Krishna are not pleased, what is the use? So one may claim that, oh, I did so many services, I did this, I did that. But if at the end of the day, if Guru and Krishna have not been pleased by all those activities, what has one achieved? Of course, there's some benefit, but in the ultimate issue, what has one achieved? So therefore, that connection to the Supreme Lord. And is the Supreme Lord pleased with my activities? That's the important question. Otherwise, sometimes we do find devotees, they try to do big services and great things without the proper consciousness to try and please Guru and Krishna. Then services may be achieved, great name and fame may be achieved, but then the sustainability will be at stake when the bhakti element is missing. Okay, let's. Okay, Prabhupada's lecture on this verse. Somebody read. Can you see the screen?
Withdrawal of powers of Arjuna. So by the grace of God, Krishna, you have become such a powerful nation, rich, beautiful, educated. But if you forget Krishna, then you are again going to be mouse. Remember that nobody will care for you.
Okay, so Prabhupada tells us Punar Mushtika Bhava, so we know that. Continue.
Just like Englishmen, they established the British Empire, most powerful nation in the world. Now they are not so, because they misuse their power. So you get power, opulence by the grace of Lord Krishna, and if you misuse it, then you become again. That is happening.
Okay, so the important lesson to learn is, because they misuse the power, then again become a mouse. So power may be given, but if the power is misused, it's used for exploitation, it's used for self-aggrandizement, it's used for showing off to the world how big I am, how powerful I am, then those powers will be taken away. That's the law of nature. Something is awarded, if it's misused, it is taken away. And this has happened again and again in history. History repeats itself. So therefore, one has to be very careful that when something is awarded, then one should be grateful for what one has been awarded and use it appropriately for the service of the Lord. Okay, read this, another lecture.
So Krishna said, but even yes.
So aham rupendra rahitam purusottamena. You also require, don't be proud, because I am man, I don't require protections. Here it is said, Krishna said,
Arjuna.
Purusottamena. So aham rahitaha. Now I have no protections. Arjuna was so great hero, still he required protection. Purusottamena. Purusa means enjoyer. The supreme enjoyer is Krishna. If he does not give protections, you cannot enjoy your life. That is not possible. Therefore, Krishna says, Krishna is giving protections. But now, as much as he wants to give you protections, because you denied to accept it. Because you deny to accept his protections, therefore he is giving protection to you as much as you want.
Continue.
As much you want protections, you just surrender on. And if you want more protections, then the condition is Sarva Dharma Paritejam Amekam Saranam Raja. Give up your own manufacturer's concocted means of protections. You just surrender unto me and I will give you protection. Protections for what? Protection from sinful activities. We are victimized by our sinful activities due to ignorance. We do not know what to do, what not to do. Out of ignorance, we do some things and we become victimized by the laws of the natures. But if you surrender to Krishna, he will give you protections. You will never be victimized. You will never be victimized.
Okay, so yes, everyone requires protection of the Lord. But then Prabhupada makes the point that because you deny to accept his protection, therefore he is giving protection to you as much as you want. Okay, so ye thamam prapadyante. So if our surrender to the Lord is not up to the mark, then Krishna also gives protection that much only. But then if there is sarvadharman parityaja, then yes, Krishna will give full protection. So therefore, it all depends on how much one is one is ready to fully depend on the Lord for the Lord's protection. So as we saw, Prabhupada also gave the example of the small child. So because the small child is totally dependent on the mother for protection, then so Prabhupada in fact gives that example. So sometimes a child is crying, but his cries are not really desperate. So the mother doesn't bother much. Oh, when the child keeps crying sometimes. But when the child really cries desperately, then the mother pays attention. So similarly, when one really feels the desperate need for protection and then surrenders to the Lord, then avashya rakshave Krishna. So one has that faith and then one seeks that protection, then Krishna will protect. Yes, but the fact is, yes, everyone requires that protection. Okay, so from the next verse onwards, then Arjuna begins to speak about the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. So till now he has been discussing about how by the Lord's grace he was able to overcome so many obstacles and how he was protected by the Lord in so many instances. And he got so much of power from the Lord. But now the Lord has gone and all his powers have gone. So that's what Arjuna is recollecting all these instances till now. And then he talks about what happened at Dwarka, the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. Okay, fine. So if we have a few minutes more, about 5 minutes or so. So if anybody has any questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, in 15th chapter, verse number 5, the purport Prabhupada tells, the lesson is therefore that no one should be puffed up for his power borrowed from the Lord. So in outside world also, we meet so many people, but due to their like opulence or wealth, they are very puffed up, proud. And even sometimes the practicing sadhaka, he also, the neophyteness, he also become very proud and arrogant. So how he can overcome from these tendencies?
Okay, so how to overcome pride?
Yes.
That's the question, right? Okay, let's hear some suggestions.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
So one way which is recommended in Shastra is by serving the great souls, Mahat Seva.
Okay, yes, that's correct. By serving the great souls, okay, one can get rid of pride. Okay, somebody else? Boliye. All baby preachers sitting here. Everyone can give a lecture on this.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Prabhuji, just now there was some problem in internet here. Yes. So should I answer this? Try to answer this. Hare Krishna. So yes. one solution is which is mentioned in the scriptures is that when we are serving the great souls, by serving them great souls, we become purified of this anartha of pride.
Okay, good. Okay, that's one point. Yes. Somebody else?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhu, for anything which we would like to rectify ourselves, The first part of that is a knowledge to be developed. Then from the knowledge, the understanding develops.
Right.
I'm lacking of this.
Okay, so first of all is to develop the knowledge regarding regarding what?
इधर लेके आओ स्पीकर
Anand, go prove.
गौरांगी स्पीकर लेके आ
क्या हो गया? Okay, so in any case, so yes, that's one point, that is to develop knowledge on the subject matter, causes of pride and all that. Okay, what else? Somebody else, please.
One has to use whatever one has got in the service of the Lord.
Okay, using everything in the service of the Lord, that's correct. Some other points? How to get rid of pride?
Haribol?
Yes.
Prabhuji, as it's now like you mentioned that no hearing or remembering Lord with rapt attention, like no keep us in our constitutional position, and we understand that we are servant of Lord.
Yes. Yes, that's correct. So hearing with rapt attention. There is one or two important points. Somebody else would like to try?
Also doing some menial services, Prabhuji.
Yes, that point was mentioned by someone. Yes, serving the great souls. And important, just to add a few points to all what has been wonderfully said. We often do hear a lot of theory. We hear a lot of lectures on all these various topics, and most of us know the theoretical aspect. But there are two things, as Krishna describes in the Bhagavad Gita. There is Gyan and there is Vigyan. There is theoretical knowledge and there is realization. So the theoretical knowledge may be there, but then when the realization is not there, then it becomes difficult to put the theory into practice. There is a nice purport in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, verse number 8. Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. But then that purport is very beautiful because Srila Prabhupada very clearly, succinctly, precisely talks about how to turn the Gyan into Vigyan and what is the results of that realized knowledge. The essence of what Srila Prabhupada speaks is that for one to get the realization, one requires grace, the grace of the Lord. One can get theoretical knowledge by reading, by hearing, but for the Vigyan to develop, one requires grace. The realizations are a gift of God, given when or awarded when the Lord is pleased by the devotional service of the devotee. So therefore, we were stressing on the point of trying to please Guru, Vaishnavas, and the Supreme Lord. So that attitude, that's the bhakti element. The bhakti means that attitude of trying to please. As we know the famous statement Prabhupada writes in the preface to the Nectar of Instruction, the progress of a devotee in Krishna consciousness depends upon the attitude of the follower. So the attitude of trying to please, that's bhakti. So when that proper attitude is there to try and please, that means there is a quality of service. When one is trying to please someone, when one loves someone, or at least is trying to love someone, then there is always that attitude, how can I please this person? Then there'll be a quality of service. And we find these things so evident. So we find one service could be given to 10 devotees, they'll do in 10 different ways. The difference is essentially a difference in attitudes. So you find when there is that attitude to please, then there is some additional quality, something special quality. One could make halwa with suji and just get the job done in the most minimal way. But then when one is trying to please, one will add something, some special dry fruits or whatever, something which will make it special. We find that that was the mood of many of Prabhupada's disciples in their relationship to Srila Prabhupada. They were always trying to go that extra mile to try and please Srila Prabhupada. And because of that attitude, of course, some of them, as we know, were ready to give up their lives. We know the pastimes of Yamuna Mataji and all that. They were ready to just lay down their lives for Srila Prabhupada. But then when that is there, then without an asking, the blessings come and the mercy comes. Because the person is just touched. Now, we all know that famous pastime, Yamuna Mataji, she said she will jump off the train if the person doesn't allow her to cook rice for Srila Prabhupada. And then when that, after great difficulty, when that rice was brought before Srila Prabhupada was so pleased with Yamuna Mataji and Kaushalya Mataji. Prabhupada said that you are like my goddesses of fortune. Now, what a compliment. So then nothing needs to be said. Blessings are just pouring. The mercy is just pouring because the personality is so pleased with that endeavor and the quality of service. Then when that blessings and mercy come, then knowledge doesn't remain on the theoretical platform or the intellectual platform, then it's realization. It becomes a part of life. Then to live a life on the basis of these devotional principles becomes one's second nature. One doesn't have to contemplate or think how to act like this. It becomes one's second nature. That's realization. And Prabhupada continues in that purport. When there is that realized knowledge, then there is steadiness on the practice of devotional service. Then one will not be deviated from the practice. That's the result of realized knowledge. So yes, so we have the theoretical knowledge, I'm insignificant spirit, soul, body is temporary, we have all this. So what's the need of pride? We know all this. But then when it comes to practical application, there are challenges because the realization is not very strong. And so therefore that realization becomes strong to the degree one is awarded the grace when one is trying to attract the grace. And then one can live on that platform which the Shastra is speaking of. So that's how we can actually get rid of pride. Of course, all the various methods are there, but then this is the ultimate solution to whereby the practice of these qualities becomes a part of one's life. Hope that helps.
Yes, yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So our time is up for today's, and we will continue. So when is the next class?
It is on 14th, Prabhuji.
Yes. So the next class is on the 14th. That is next Wednesday. So we will continue our discussions on that day. So thank you all very much for your kind attention and taking out your valuable time to attend these classes. I'm personally very grateful to all of you. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare
Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare
Rama, Hare
Rama,
Rama.
Rama